One of the greatest threats would be radioactive fallout.
Uranium fever.
Where fallout is heaviest, it can even kill those who have not taken proper shelter.
Broadcasting deep underground in a questionably constructed survivalist bunker is Dave Chafins and Kenneth Vigue, and your host, as always, Mr. Robots. This episode of the Fallout Hub is brought to you by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Open enrollment for advanced robotics courses starts now. Totally nothing sketchy going on. Nope, not at all.
What are we even doing here? Didn't we just do a show, guys? Wasn't it like Saturday, just like a few days ago? We did a show.
A few days ago? What are you talking about?
We did it. We did a
I'm an
Saturday
evil
show.
twin.
Yeah, we did a Saturday. We've already done this. We did the show for the week, but I guess we're back. Welcome back to the Fallout Hub. We are here again. This is like extra show bonanza because we've got some crazy news about Bethesda and Zenimax and some little company called Microsoft, and they're getting together, getting some hanky-panky going on. And so we decided that we were going to sit down and talk about it with our friend Toon. So, well, I'm going to have to welcome everybody. So let's just go through the roll call. Ken, how are you today?
I am good.
You are good, like Jesus. And then we also have Dave. Welcome.
Hello, we're going to change the Abraxo box for the Xbox. That is the decree. I make the rules on that particular situation, and that's the decree.
That's a good one. I like that.
A
Good joke.
Braxbox.
And we have our guest today who isn't here for an interview, but is here to tune in to what's going on with Microsoft and Bethesda. Tooniversal. Toon, what's up? How you doing?
Doing great, fresh off a broadcast this morning and ready to chat with you guys about two giant conglomerates coming together in the gaming industry.
Mm-hmm. And you are looking fresh as well. Welcome. I am your host, Tom or Robots, and welcome back to the Fallout Hub, the unofficial official show of the Fallout TV show. I'm just going to keep doing that every week.
Technically,
every
isn't
time.
this now the unofficial official show of Zenimax, Bethesda, Microsoft Incorporated, and its subsidiary holdings?
This is now also the unofficial official show of Windows.
Yeah,
Windows.
Powered by Windows.
Yep.
Powered by Windows.
PowerPoint.
Yeah, this is the unofficial official show of PowerPoints. Today we'll be talking spreadsheets and how to get the most out of your calculations over multiple sheets and using pivot tables and especially the sum feature.
Wow.
So wow, complex stuff. Thank you for joining us. As usual, we are broadcasting to you on twitch.tv/The Fallout Hub live Tuesdays 5 p.m. /2 p.m. Eastern Pacific. You guys can figure that out. So I'm just going to pitch this up because we've got a bunch of news that isn't really detailed. We've got so many questions. It's been a day since we have found out that Microsoft is purchasing Zenimax, Bethesda, the people who make Fallout, the people who make Elder Scrolls, Doom, all of that stuff. And there's a lot of questions going around. There's questions about, does that mean that because they own Bethesda and Obsidian that we're going to get a New Vegas 2? Ooh, does that mean that we're not going to get games on PlayStation? Ooh, what does that actually mean? So I'm going to pitch this to our panel here. Who would like to start us out with some details about this? Nobody.
No one is going to start shut on some details about this. However, I have been designated before as the herald.
You know what? This is a Dave thing.
I don't like, if the Mjolnir Thor's hammer is laying there, I guess I'm worthy enough to pick it up. So big news. Guess what? Microsoft, the company behind PCs,
and Xboxes
has bought Bethesda Zenimax for $7.5 around there billion dollars. So to put that in perspective, Mojang, the studio behind Minecraft and the IP.
Mungcraft? You almost said Mungcraft.
Minecraft. That's where
Minecraft is a very different game.
I played Minecraft once.
Well, they were bought for 2.5 back in the day, and then to put it even in more perspective, a lot of people are throwing around this Disney number because Disney bought Star Wars for 4.5 billion.
Holy moly!
Get your head around that
perspective.
Holy moly!
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of billions.
Yeah,
that's like
I'm for sale. If anybody,
it's like this many. Yeah, I don't know that human beings are actually worth that much.
Dollar-wise, Bethesda is more important than Star Wars.
That's crazy. I mean, get your head around that. That's nuts.
I think a lot of people discredit how much money the video game industry generally generates. Yeah.
$200 billion just this year alone. That's incredibly insane.
Incredibly.
I think that this is a testament to the worth of the medium itself. I think that this will be, as far as stocks, very good for a lot of outliers looking at other companies in the video game industry and what that entertainment value is worth. Just off the top of my head. I can continue on with the news, though. There's some other things that they have said. I'm kind of summarizing the news. There's like a press release from Xbox. There's a press release from Todd Howard. There's a press release from Pete Hines. There could be a press release from the janitor up in Maryland, Bethesda.
If somebody was to pay me $7.5 billion, I can write a press release too.
Yeah, that would be very good. Bethesda games, all of their games library and future games will all launch day and date on Xbox Games Pass. When asked about PS5 exclusivity commitment, Xbox plans to honor those with both the games Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo. Bethesda games will be able to come to different console platforms on a case-by-case basis rolling into the future. Those are just kind of facts of what they said. There's not a lot of facts. There's a lot of story and why they chose to go with Microsoft and why they like them as a partner. But I'll read two quotes, one from Todd Howard, one from Pete Hines. Mr. Howard says, like our original partnership, this one is about more than one system or one screen. We share a deep belief in the fundamental power of games and their ability to connect, empower, and bring joy. And a belief we should bring that to everyone, regardless of who you are, where you live, or what you play on, regardless of the screen size, the controller, or your ability to even use one. Pete Hines says, it's a big change for us, but after taking a minute to absorb the magnitude of this acquisition, we're going to continue doing what we know and love, making great games. We're going to keep trying new things. We're going to take the same passion we've poured into what we do and the passion that our community brings to the things we make and do even better. So what's everybody's initial reactions?
I believe that both of those went through a significant route through the marketing department a few times and then spit out to the public. Yeah. That's what I think. Yes. I mean, those are all very good things. I think that those all touch on the things that we want to know, like, oh, they care about the things we care about and about making good games. Yay, rah, 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 cheerlead, cheerlead. I mean, yes, I wouldn't expect anything different than that. That sounds perfect. But as for like actual information on the ground, there's not a whole lot there, right?
Yeah.
But this is so early. Why would they put information out there about things that they're not even able to implement yet or haven't even finished deciding? Because it's not like during a game, during the sale of a company like this, it's not like you set the rules and say, well, you set some of it, but nothing is really hard and fast. It really comes down to the financial transaction. Does this seem like it's a good thing for the shareholders? Does it seem like it's a good thing for the company as a whole? Will it continue to allow us to make the things that we want to make and to do a good job with it? Yes. Okay. Are we making good profit? Yes. Okay. Good. Make the sale. I mean, that's really the main justification of anything like this. The way stuff shakes out, like exclusivity, what games they're going to make in the future, those kinds of details are decided and debated in boardrooms from this point forward.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this shakes or reignites the console wars, which already were kind of, if you have seen any of the nonsense that people have been fighting back and forth about, ever since the two consoles were announced, everyone has been fighting back and forth about Xbox versus PlayStation. And now that's kind of started all up again in a different way. Think about the timing of this, where this announcement, which is going to really give Xbox a massive leg up, access to all of Bethesda Zenimax's studios and games, some of the largest games in the industry, announced just weeks before the consoles, are hitting the market. Talk about shaking things up.
Yeah, I think this is obviously intentionally released now in order to make people question, okay, should I buy a PlayStation? Should I buy an Xbox? But we do know some things about exclusivity. Can you?
Oh, we lost you, Tom.
You've this a little bit.
What?
Internet. You have some insight about exclusivity, right?
Yes. What they said is that the exclusivity agreements that they have already agreed to for a period of time are still going to be honored. But like Dave said, as far as any of that stuff, it's going to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis going forward. I mean, the exclusivity that PlayStation has been given, I think, with Deathloop and one other game. I can't recall the other one right now.
Ghostwire Tokyo.
Ghostwire Tokyo, yeah.
Yeah, those two games are exclusive for a period of time. After that, it's kind of, who knows. What they did make very clear, though, and Todd Howard even clarified, their goal is to make these playable to everyone, everywhere, regardless of how you play. Which makes smart financial sense. I don't think Microsoft is going to cut out an entire console and lose out on what likely is a massive chunk of income. Because I think, especially I know as Fallout, there are more PlayStation players than there are Xbox players of Fallout 76. So it just wouldn't make business sense to cut off that whole console.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we're much more likely to get console exclusives for things like early release dates,
right?
Or if you buy the super duper edition on the Xbox, then you're going to get these skins and things which you can't get on the PlayStation.
Right.
We're probably going to get that kind of stuff. But to say that things are not going to release on the PlayStation, probably not the best thing. My other perspective on this is that Xbox has been focusing very, very much on moving people into their platform as a whole, not just their console. So when we're talking about Xbox, they want you to think the games that come out on Xbox systems and PCs, and eventually the games that you can just play in the cloud that stream to whatever device that you're using,
right,
as a subscription thing. So it makes sense to me that you bring in a studio like Bethesda, who's one of a few big studios that wasn't eaten up by some other larger corporation. And all of a sudden you get, the Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Doom, Dishonored, all of these series, from the biggest ones to some of the smaller ones that they do, that all generally have a good reputation. And now people associate them with your Microsoft platform. And it's much more than just a quick play. This is a long play. This is what's going to play out for this entire console generation. And, for example, the kids today who are say 15-year-olds who are going to be getting a console for Christmas and they pick up an Xbox, by the time they're 20, they're going to be associating Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6 and those things with the Microsoft platform. And they will continue to associate that well into adulthood as they continue to play games. So that's my perspective on that.
What about you, Toon?
I look at everything. It's hard to take just the Todd Howard statement and not think about things that Pete Hines has said or that Phil Spencer has said. So, it seems sometimes if you're looking at it at a glance, it looks like maybe Phil Spencer is saying one thing and then Todd Howard is saying another. So it's like and like you said, Tom, as things continue to progress, as we learn more information, as they work out details of this acquisition, more of these things are going to come to light. We're going to understand it better.
Yeah, that's kind of my perspective, and that Elder Scrolls and Fallout are both juggernauts, more so than Dishonored or Evil Within, even though I particularly love those games, or Doom is another juggernaut that people know around the world that have that appeal. Like Minecraft, Fortnite are kind of newer ones to it. Like people outside, like if you go and talk to your neighbor, they're probably going to know one of those games. Like they're probably going to know Skyrim because that was the big thing. There are some games that are just so big and associated across the world that I'm not sure what sense it would make to not have those as many places as possibly get them. There's a lot of other stuff that that people can make, or there's the ability to do, but I think that there are some like holy grails that they have there that they're like, all right, like nobody touched the pristine masterpiece, we want this on display everywhere, like this is going to be at the front of the gallery when we walk in. So as far as almost transitioning into what this means for Bethesda Zenimax, this seems freaking great for them, because what they were as a company before it was privately owned. That's what it was. It was a bunch of people that started the company way back in the day, and they built this up. And they seemed like that there's been rumors that they were looking to sell their company to another entity. There was talks of even like Sony back in the day, like a year ago. It has been shopped around, I think, a few different places. But the alternative of them going public and then being beholden unto their own personal stockholders, as opposed to Microsoft, which has this vision that's been established for years and years with their game studios and has been growing and evolving really in the past 5 years, I think is a way better play for them. What do you guys think?
Sure.
Yeah, Vassarax in chat says, I have to pray that Microsoft push them to Unreal 5 or some other massive overhaul for their engine. I did see a post from Todd Howard. I don't think that's going to happen.
It's not.
Yeah, Todd Howard, in one of his posts, addressed that and has said that, and this is probably one of the reasons why it's taken us so long to get to the Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6 release, is that they have updated the engine, that this is the most massive overhaul they've made to this engine since releasing Oblivion.
Right.
So that would be that's the jump from Morrowind to Oblivion, which was the jump from that was the 360 generation. That was a significant jump in graphics. Right. Think about the way the forests looked, all of that stuff in that generation of games. And one of the things that a lot of people don't seem to understand is a game engine isn't it's not a stuck thing. I'm trying to think. It's not like this controller, and like, oh, this controller sucks, throw it out, get a new controller. You can replace every bit of I guess it is kind of like the controller. You can replace every bit of the controller, and eventually, if you replace enough of the components of the controller, is it even still the same controller? That's the way software works. If you gut the software and replace the core components of the software, then on some level, it's not even the same software anymore.
It's like renovating a house. You tear out enough of the house, you renovate enough of the house, it's going to be practically a new house. Right, yeah.
Yeah, like the old question about the ship. How many planks of the ship does it take to replace before the ship is no longer the original ship, right? Eventually you replace all the components, and now it is a brand new engine, more or less. So that's the complexity of it. On top of that, the programmers that they have working on this and who have been working on it for the last 4 or 5 years are not necessarily the same programmers who worked on the engine back during the Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim days.
Right.
Staff changes, and you bring in experts who understand different things, or people who may have worked on the Unreal Engine or these other engines in order to implement the things that they've learned and expand on them. So I wish this was something that the public kind of let go of, because it's not really the way this stuff works.
Yeah.
Eventually you can replace the whole thing.
The thing with the Unreal Engine, and I guess the benefit of it, is it's widely available. A lot of people know it. It's very easy for people to move throughout the industry where they have experience with Unreal Engine. You can have programming experience for a number of different languages, but getting into an engine and learning that whole process is a whole different thing. The logic is kind of the same from engine to engine. I've played around with Unreal and Unity and Game Makers, I think it's the other one. Mm-hmm. But that's the benefit, is you see these games that are in Unreal Engine, and it's very easy to get talent to do that. Whereas Bethesda games, and the reason that they use that creation engine is number one, because they can activate all of this modding, all of this different stuff through their own means, make that available. And that's why Skyrim can still sell tons of copies 10 years after release. Like that is why that they use that creation engine, is because they have complete control over it. They can do whatever they want, and we, by Bethesda's grace, we have the power to go and make these crazy mods like Empire Waits, or like Skyblivion, or the list goes on. The second reason I think for that is a lot of the modding community and the people that have worked in Creation Engine. If you look at some of the Bethesda job advertisements for a lot of the programming, design, that kind of stuff, they're looking for people with experience in Creation Engine. And it's very easy to do that on your own. Like you can just go and make a Fallout mod and play test stuff. Like if you were applying for a job with combat, like you could go and make a mock-up in Fallout 4 and say, okay, this is what I want to do. And you build off that and things get better and things change. But for the most part, there is a vast number of people, especially in the modding community, that are used to that understand that and can work with it very easily.
The other thing that I think is really interesting about this is it's been, 7 or 8 years since they acquired id and brought Doom into that picture. And people forget that the id engine was another engine. And you go back, and it still is, but you go back 10, 15 years, and that was one of the predominant engines competing with Unreal. So that was one of the reasons why I was excited when they took on id Software, because they were getting with that experienced engine developers. And those experienced engine developers, I would imagine, if they didn't leave the company, have probably been working with and implementing things behind the scenes with updates to their own engines. So I'm sure there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we just don't have any insight to when it comes to all of this stuff.
And this is just the start. It's important. There's an important distinction. Microsoft has not purchased Zenimax yet. This was an announcement that they intend to acquire the company, but this isn't going to be completed until the second half of next year. So we still have a ways to go. And there's a little later, we can talk a little bit about the difference between mergers and acquisitions, which gets into a lot of what I've done for companies before to explain the difference between the two. Because this still falls under FTC oversight. So there's a number of legal hurdles that have to be moved through before this is a done deal. A lot of people, videos coming out and whatnot, were saying, oh, it's, this is done. And, Todd Howard's gone. And no, that's not, no, none of that is accurate. What?
Well, I mean, why don't we stop the train at that particular stop on the tracks? This Kenneth Vigue corporate strategist session, and let's hear a little bit about that.
Let's start firstly with explaining what the success trap is. Companies invariably, there's a theorem in business where companies reach a critical mass point where they can't get any more successful than they do. So they get caught in what's called a success trap. And essentially what that means in business, you get to a point where you become stagnant on that success. So you're not bringing enough diversity. You're not taking risks. You're playing it safe. Some of the largest brands in the world got to that point. Kodak, Rubbermaid, Blockbuster. In the past century, 19 companies that were on the Fortune 500, Fortune 100 list don't exist anymore. So, I mean, these companies get so large, they make the critical mistake of not diversifying enough, not changing enough, not taking risks, and then they just get left behind. Interestingly enough, going back to Microsoft versus Sony, so Game Pass launched in 2017. PlayStation's Sony's program launched with 2014. They have 1 million subscribers as of October of last year at last count. Game Pass launched 3 years later, and as of this year has 10 million members that pay $10 a month. That is a massive cash cow. So the purchase of Zenimax is not only strategically brilliant for them to bring in all of these titles and the ability to produce new titles that get added and continue to build value into the Game Pass, but it also is a drop in the bucket as far as how much income is coming in through that program. Another point of the difference in mergers and acquisitions. With a merger, a company will, oftentimes it'll be two public companies. So there's stocks that emerge. The team invariably is shaken up, CEOs exit, management exits, and the company merges together to become a composite. With an acquisition, it's commonly a large publicly traded company that acquires a smaller private company, in which case there's no change in management structure in a large scale sense. A lot of smaller positions can sometimes change around while the companies merge together and synergize a little bit, but it's not like Microsoft just comes in and takes over and then changes everything about Zenimax, which Pete Hines had already talked about. The team is going to stay the same. Todd Howard isn't going anywhere. That's the difference between a merger and acquisition. So the company remains intact as its own entity. It just is now operating under the Microsoft umbrella. The benefit to Zenimax plays into what the success trap is, where right now the company could use the additional cash flow from Microsoft as well as the technologies of Microsoft. So we're talking about an infusion of new tools, equipment, processes, exclusive technology, all of which can empower them to make better games and create all kinds of new things that we haven't even thought of yet. In addition to collaborating with other companies that are in there. We'll talk about New Vegas later because I know we're all excited about that. But to have all of these game companies now operating under one parent company means a lot of opportunities for collaboration. So when we've had Pete Hines on, he talked about how commonly the teams that developed ESO, which is under Zenimax Online Media, had helped Fallout 76 most recently in the development of One Wasteland. So that team and their expertise and some of the ways that they structured that game, as far as leveling goes, is brought into Fallout 76. And that's just from an intercompany standpoint. Now you have Microsoft and all of these other studios that are all synergizing and trading ideas and strategies that ultimately helps all of the companies underneath it. In the long run, this is going to be really, really amazing for Zenimax, Bethesda, in being able to create bigger games, to maybe launch them with more testing and not have as much pressure maybe as far as equity partners go in shipping a game out the door before it probably should have. So I think that'll be helpful, partly because Microsoft has internally, they have some specific guidelines in terms of what they're looking for. So I think they're going to bring some of that expectation maybe to the table with all of their gaming companies that'll be operating under the company. So that's kind of a little bit of a broad stroke about how the acquisitions will go. And again, this isn't going to be until the second half of 2020. So we won't see any shifts as far as the company goes with smaller positions for quite a while.
Well, as a not necessarily a rebuttal, but time means nothing to us during this time. So I mean, you're telling me that it's a long way off. I'm like, tomorrow it's gonna happen.
Well, look at what happened when they,
of course, in my memory,
they teased Elder Scrolls 6, which is probably like 3 or 4, 5, 6 years down the road. Who knows? And everyone's like, is it coming out yet? Is it coming out yet? What about Starfield? Is it coming out yet?
Yeah. Yeah.
So as we kind of we're kind of dancing around the topic here, we're gonna get down. We're gonna talk about Fallout, which I think
time
is
to get down.
It's in the name of the show. So what do you guys think? What does this mean for Fallout? What is this as a brand? Because that's one of I think the major things that Microsoft acquired is they can literally post Vault Boy memes all day and not get any flack about it. So what do you guys think?
That was the main goal, was the memes.
It was the memes.
They just spent $7.5 billion
worth of memes. Yeah.
I had a lot of fun making those yesterday.
Well, Toon? What do you think? You play a lot of Fallout.
I do.
I do. I do.
I think largely, what Kenneth has said, I think largely the accountability for if you've played Bethesda games historically, like you find inevitably some sort of bug with them. And I don't think any game is released out the door with zero bugs. I mean, even Rockstar, who doesn't catch the flack for bugs, like has bugs in their games. Like you can't omit those or overlook those. So I think the accountability for games going forward is going to be important, and just the wisdom and the insight that they can offer into the creativity of the games and the gameplay. But largely, I mean, Microsoft doesn't seek to acquire Bethesda because they're making bad games and they need help. Like they want them to continue doing what they do best. And I think with the Fallout brand, is you're going to continue to see worlds populated with dynamic characters and deep stories that compel you as they've done in the past. So I think largely, a lot of the storytelling and the day-to-day stuff is going to be left alone for the most part.
Yeah.
Oh, are you doing anything important right now?
The cat.
Toon's cat has made an appearance on the show,
and in my streams every day too.
So do we want to address the question about New Vegas 2?
Okay, all right. That we'll go ahead. We'll start digging into that. Here's a hot take. You ready for the hottest take that will get me kicked out of Fallout in general? Every single community. Yeah. No one needs New Vegas 2, and you all are uncreative for thinking that we need a New Vegas 2. There's already been a New Vegas. How about we get something new before we get a New Vegas 2?
Wait.
Yeah, knows what he's talking about.
New Vegas.
Newer
Vegas.
Newer Vegas.
New Reno.
It's like the knockoff.
But there's
Atlantic City. Oh God, we both said it. Crap.
There's so many opportunities though, and I'm not sure, like this kind of like collaboration that people are talking about between Obsidian and Bethesda Game Studios, that kind of stuff, that to manage that, like your production probably can't start for another 3 years. Like to like start working on something like that, I think would be an undertaking. I think you're more likely to see
Fallout 5.
Well, you're more likely to see Fallout 5 before you do that. And I think that it's going to, Fallout 5 is going to kind of be a combination of different efforts, because that's, I guess, looking on down the line, we got to get Starfield, which I'm guessing is sometime in the next 10 years. And then you have Elder Scrolls, which is sometime in the next 30. And so, around that 50-year mark, we're gonna get Fallout 5. But joking aside, I think that we're gonna get some collaboration there. But I think before you even get Fallout 5, I think one of the things that people aren't realizing is like they have smaller studios that could do work. They have this gigantic brand, and if they want to put something out on, Games Pass or something that's new Fallout, they've shown that they're willing to experiment with Fallout. I mean, heck, we have a whole podcast about an experimental Fallout game. Like, Fallout 76 is not a quote unquote, I guess, mainline game. It's an offshoot. Even with its nuclear winter mode, with these different modes that they're experimenting with, I think that you are more likely to see a smaller game. Now, I release you all to talk about New Vegas 2. Go and have your fun now.
Now that you've killed it.
Now that I've killed it.
I murdered this thing. Here you go. Enjoy.
I think we're going to, and I'll tell you why. Yesterday, that is the very first thing. First, everyone was like, what? And then everyone was like, okay, New Vegas 2 can happen now. To the point that gaming magazines, online reporters, Polygon, everyone was saying, okay, now New Vegas 2 could happen. There's articles that came out yesterday with them saying that this collaboration could happen now. It would be such an easy win to win a massive amount of positive love from the Fallout community to do something like that. Even if it's something small, I think it would be an easy win. But I also think there are inherent risks to that, which you fall into not the success trap, but the nostalgia trap, where I think and it's sometimes baffling, because I was talking and even in our group about how amazing Fallout New Vegas was for me. And they're people who started with Fallout 4, and it just looks like this ridiculous, silly dinosaur of a game to start with 4 and then go back to New Vegas.
Yeah.
It's so much more clunky, but we have such deep memories of that game. The nostalgia of it is deeply embedded in our love of Fallout.
And the charm of the clunkiness at the time was
totally
part of it.
Yeah. I mean, it had excellent writing, but the combat mechanics for Fallout New Vegas versus Fallout 4 or Fallout 76 are so now antiquated. It's not even funny, but you run the risk sometimes of trying to meet expectations that those of us who care most about it, we can't possibly be met. In the same way that maybe some of the new Star Wars movies or Star Trek or any of these long-term, or even Doctor Who, long-term fandoms, you have difficulty staying relevant to younger audiences, which, bring in money, or older audiences who want what they had 10, 15, 20 years ago and can't get back again. That being said, I really want it to happen.
Yeah, that level of game, I can't imagine, like, because if Xbox is going to do a New Vegas 2, they're going to do their damnedest to meet expectations.
Oh yeah.
But to get there, that's such an undertaking just from the inception of it.
Yeah, they wouldn't even get to work on it for 6 months to a year. I mean, the acquisition has to end, right? They have to we're looking at something that won't release for another 4 or 5 years, even if they started today.
Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I think it would be more likely, and I think something you would be more likely to Obsidian come in and their first, if they want to collaborate with Bethesda Studios, a great way to do it is they have this live service game called Fallout 76.
I've been thinking about that.
If you want to start with something and say, okay, people want New Vegas, we don't want to spend all of this time meeting expectations on New Vegas 2, but for the people that want more, because the thing is about New Vegas, people don't want more of the game. They want more of that world. That world is incredible.
They want more of the story and set in that world. So so I see where you're going with this. Like, so why not add to 76, create something over in the West Coast, a reason for you to travel over there, experience those stories, those characters. You already have an engine that can run it. You just need a team to implement the stories and design that part of the world.
Literally do what they did with Morrowind in ESO, like just
Yep.
And I mean, if you're talking about small scale and kind of getting to work, I guess that would be easier. Expectations would be set on what that is. It's like
then it could take a year or two to get out. You're going to do it in half the time.
Timeline wise, what would be amazing is if an expedition to New Vegas at where we're at in the timeline now happened. You get out there, and of course, at this point in time, New Vegas would have been pretty well abandoned or taken over by raiders. So House is still in a coma. He hasn't woken up yet. So his Securitrons haven't gone out to collect the tribes. So New Vegas is pretty empty, except whatever could be in there. What if, as an expedition, you go out there and you have to, clean out New Vegas and maybe do something to start the process of fixing House to get him back online, which I think won't happen for another 70 years after this. I'm trying to remember the exact date.
I think it's 200 years almost. Yeah, it's like 170 years or something.
Yeah.
And people often forget, though, that there's like a gigantic time machine located in the Cranberry Bog as well. So like, nothing is really out of the question. They have this gigantic subway and all of these things.
Oh, MacGuffin.
Yeah.
I still
crazy, and we're talking crazy.
I still think the whole thing is a simulation in Fallout 76, and you're all going to wake up in some other place one day. I think that's a possibility. Yeah. You wake up and it's Fallout. One of my viewers suggests Fallout Bay Area, where like you're actually like
San Francisco.
In San Francisco, Oakland area, Alcatraz DLC, like.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Alcatraz could be a dungeon for sure.
Like a lot of stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah.
The setting of the seminal film, The Room, San Francisco, that one.
When you say seminal, that is my favorite phrase that you use.
I looking at these studios, I think that Obsidian is kind of an easy one to look at and be like, oh man, It's like people, pairing up movie stars together in like Time magazine, or I don't know if Time magazine, but more like the like People magazine would be a better thing, and being like, oh, wouldn't they look cute together? I think another one is In Exile Entertainment, which most recently did Wasteland 3. And if you legitimately can stomach XCOM as a strategy game, and you want a Fallout story, go play Wasteland 3, you idiots. You should have been playing that before you even listened to this podcast, and it should be done. There's a robotic Ronald Reagan that controls an entire town through his Ronald Reagan religion. Like,
Sign me up.
We're on some stuff here. What I'm trying to say is, if I could, let me put my pipe dream out there. If we can get an actual sequel to Brotherhood Tactics and get like a full-on XCOM Brotherhood of Steel game by In Exile Entertainment. You get your squad, you get all your people, you're like, all right, we got to go clear out these super mutants, and then you got your power armor, everybody's got their things, you're going out there, kind of like
got your things.
Yeah, you got your top down area. It's like 95% chance to hit this thing, and then you miss it. That's how those games go.
Yeah.
That's my ultimate, and I'm trying to think of like what's accomplishable.
Fallout, Minecraft.
Oh no.
You say that.
You know what I heard? You know what I heard pitched? I heard somebody say something like, "If I see a Master Chief suit show up in Fallout 76, I'm out." Which.
Well, I mean, they freaking put, when they released the Nintendo Switch, the Skyrim game, they put in Zelda's armor and sword and shield.
They did.
I guess links if we're looking at lore, but
wait, Zelda's not the boy?
I mean, heck, we basically got NCR armor in Fallout 76, so why not give us some little Master Chief?
Okay, that's Charleston Riot Police. If you read the little letter that they changed on there, in the universe, I think. Forget the desert. There's no desert out there, but forget that pain ever existed. We got to move on.
I want to see the Doomslayer just smack the Scorchbeast Queen.
Yeah,
that'd be good. What about Vertibirds and Microsoft Flight Simulator?
I would play that.
Now we're talking.
Oh, look, there's my house. Or the Zeppelin. Just fly the Zeppelin.
Yeah.
The Predwin. The
Predwin, yeah.
Yeah. So
Outer Worlds 2, Van Buren.
Is there any other speculation of what can go on with Fallout? Does anybody have any like left fielders here? What do we got? Anything?
I think we're going to see maybe a little more marketing, and maybe a better rollout of updates or content, with more of an infusion maybe of money that gives them a little more ability to increase marketing budgets and really plan out patches and content. I think we're going to see more of that.
That's a real home run left fielder from Ken right there.
The other speculation I've heard is people saying things like, does this mean we'll get Elder Scrolls 6 sooner?
Not necessarily.
But I don't think so.
It's depending on if they increase how they do staffing. I'm a little bit confused on what everyone in Bethesda is on, because you have multiple studios. You have the Maryland one, which is the main one. And they're working on Starfield, I guess, for the most part, I think. Austin is working on 76. You have a studio in Dallas as well that people often forget about, that they worked on Nuclear Winter. Now they're working on something else. You've got your Montreal studio, which hasn't, I guess, is doing support for Blades right now. Like, you've got a bunch of studios, but then combining that up and then putting it all under one family, I guess you would need to have a team that's kind of working in tandem with Starfield to get that out there. But are you going to get that same quality for both?
Right.
At a time when people are still vastly working out of home offices.
Yeah.
Right.
It's almost more efficient to stick with the team that you have than to bring in a lot of new people to crank something out faster.
Right.
Because there's a learning curve there. There's training. You disrupt the team dynamic. So more people to crank something out faster may not work.
And that's what I think they did for 76 was they they developed that internally, and then once they had bought, I think I forgot the name of the studio before, it was Bethesda Austin, but towards the end they were like, okay, we're going to kind of change hands here in a, you know, if you're running at the track meet and you're going to do the baton pass, it's kind of what they did for the live service. They were like, okay, this team is now going to do live service stuff. It seems like for the most part, any like major like overhauls, like art assets and stuff are being managed by both, it seems, but for day-to-day stuff, it's all BGS Austin.
Yeah, when Mark Tucker, when we had him on, he was working for them down in Austin when they bought out the company and he started working for Bethesda.
Yeah, that was a cool interview. I like those guys.
They're good people.
I hope we see them again sometime.
Speaking of developers, one thing I wanted to remind everybody of, because more recently I saw a lot of talk back and forth online about it. Developers are not responsible when a product is shipped and it's not what we want it to be. Developers, and if you remember to that interview, if you didn't see when we interviewed Mark and Ferret, you should go back and watch it. One important thing that Ferret said is 76 had some very obvious problems that they wanted to fix, but you get to a point where it had to ship. There was pressure to get it out the door. So developers don't want to ship a product that way. They work very hard, obviously, and care deeply about the game. And if anything, I hope some of them felt better after Wastelanders for finally getting recognition for the game, because there would be nothing worse than dedicating that much time to building something only to have people just talk about how awful it was and how the developers are terrible. And
Yeah, it's not your fault.
No, I mean, I've worked for companies like that before where it's not like shipping a game, but something is put out there that you weren't confident in and it reflects on you in a fashion. You just feel awful about it.
Right. Imagine someone hiring you to do a painting.
Right.
And you know it's going to take you 2 weeks. And after the first week, you're only halfway done the painting and they're like, oh, we're done.
This is good.
I need it now.
Yeah, let's hang it up on the wall.
You'd be like, this looks like garbage. You can't even tell what it is. And they're like, nope, we have to put it up on the wall. Time to finish.
And if we're looking at kind of a change of hands, Microsoft is willing to delay Halo, which was an original launch title for their brand new system, to next year. Like they were willing to do that because they were like, yeah, you know, we showed this game off. It wasn't up to our standards. That's like Bethesda putting out the previews for Fallout 76 and people going, you know, this doesn't look right. And them going, okay, well, see you in a year. We're going to go work on it a little bit more. Like, you never have that in the industry, but Microsoft is willing to do that because their fan base sees that. They're like, okay, maybe this product isn't finished when you've got this strange alien that looks like, you know,
what does it look like?
you've seen memed up.
One more time.
It's me when I like.
I'm clipping that
alien face.
That's getting clipped.
I think that is another reason it's a good pairing, because they're looking at games and they're like, okay, we want this to be what it can be, and they have that perspective, and not just perspective, but clearly the money. Money seems immaterial to them. Although I don't think that they can go ask Daddy for anything else for Christmas, because I think this is enough to cover them for that.
Well, we also have to compare them to their competition, and one of the reasons, and I brought this up in the video that I put up on YouTube, one of the reasons why they're doing this is to compete with Sony's first-party games. And their first-party games have very much been, wait to put them out until they're complete and ready to go, and then they're out there and they're ready to go, and they get glowing reviews. I mean, they sell tons, you know, games like God of War and Horizon Zero Dawn and all these other games. So if that's the caliber of game that they're competing with for first party titles, then that's going to be the bar that they're trying to reach before they release.
Yep.
So it just makes sense.
So let me go ahead and open Pandora's box here.
Oh dear.
What do we think, or not necessarily what do we think, and what do we think and what should they do about exclusivity in general for Bethesda games, for Fallout, for the gambit of the things? I want to open the floor for that discussion, because that discussion has been happening everywhere, across all different cases, where you've got essentially Microsoft next year. Microsoft is publishing a PlayStation 5 exclusive game. That has never happened, and that probably will never happen ever again. This is like how crazy this time is. So I'm curious what you all think, I guess, what will happen and what should happen. What's the dealio going on here?
What's the dealio?
What's the dealio? The seminal dealio.
I think Microsoft's going to want it to be available on all consoles. I think that's what they want. But I also think that this puts Microsoft and ZeniMax in a strong negotiating point for really making cross-platform happen. It can now easily happen on Xbox. That's not in the way anymore. But in future, giving PlayStation the ability to do cross-platform, and in exchange for exclusivity for time, trading that back and forth gives both companies some real negotiating power to get PlayStation on board with making cross-platform happen. I would love to see it happen with 76. I really would. I also know console players don't want the issues that come with PC players, which is, hacked weapons and all that nonsense, which, maybe some Microsoft money can help with preventing that from ever happening again. But, I think that's the only
pay off the hackers. Give them what they want.
Yeah. Cash bonus.
Toon, what about you?
I think the way that people play games is going to evolve in the next 5 years.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, with xCloud becoming sort of this what seems this prototype right now, which could become sort of the norm, is like, like the Nintendo Switch is right now. It's like I can play it on my TV, and then I can just pick up the game that I was playing. There it is, right there, right over there.
We know what Dave does while he's supposed to be working.
He plays Breath of the Wild. So, people might not have to make these choices between consoles if something like xCloud is somewhat affordable. Say if it's like Game Pass and it's $10 a month or something like that. Like, you can play these games like on your mobile device. Granted, it's not the same experience, it's not the same platform that you used to, but I that's one thing that I think is going to happen is the way that we think that gaming is being locked to something, like a specific type of device is going to change. So it's like you may be able to have like that console. Let's say you're strapped for cash. You may buy that PlayStation, but you want to play something that could be exclusive to Xbox. You're going to be able to experience that on mobile in some way. So some of the things we've heard, like I said earlier, from the different people, from Phil Spencer, from Todd Howard, and from Pete Hines, there's different things coming in. But until we get the full details worked out, we'll have to wait and see like how exclusivity works with Bethesda titles on Microsoft.
My guess is that they're going to. Let me say it this way. I think the wise choice would be to release everything on everything, but to do like their beta tests or like the early looks or the early release stuff on Xbox, PC, Game Pass platforms.
Yeah.
That way they're not screwing over everyone. If you have a PlayStation, you're still going to get it at launch. You can still play it just like everyone else. But if you want to jump in the beta weekend test, which is really just a demo, let's be honest, those beta weekends mostly are demos, then you need to sign up for Game Pass in order to get it. So that way they use it as a way to move people into the Game Pass platform. They go, oh, I get all these other games too. They stick around at least for a few months playing those other games. Now they've got the subscription cost, and they also get to play the new Starfield or Elder Scrolls that comes out. And then once they're in the Game Pass platform, they either buy it on Game Pass because they've already made progress in the games on there, or they subscribe long enough to the point where they are pretty much done playing it for a while, and then they either stay on the pass and play other games, or they cancel their subscription. And then, of course, when they feel like, oh, there's a new update for that game, then they go back and resubscribe. Yeah. And
right.
That seems the smart way to do it. I think that aligns with their goals, but it still allows people who want to play it on PlayStation to play it, and they don't get the negative press about, oh, you can only play this game over here now.
So from my perspective, I'm probably the underserved market, or what people would perceive as that, because as I sit from my Mac computer with my Nintendo Switch and my PlayStation 4 down there, not an Xbox or PC in sight. And my PlayStation 5 pre-order already magically secured in a matter of 2 minutes, which was a whole nother debacle. I said at the beginning of the show that there are some brands that are kind of bigger than everything else. So if they're going to, bottom line, and I think that you can take this to the bank. This is something you can take all the way to the Pete Hines' bank down in Bethesda, Maryland, and turn it in. They're going to want you to be able to play Elder Scrolls and Fallout as many ways as you possibly can. Mm-hmm. Now, does that mean you're going to play it on PlayStation? I'm not really sure. I think that you're more likely by the time Starfield or Elder Scrolls rolls out that Game Pass is going to be like Netflix, where it's like it's available on your Roku, it's available on your has the availability levels of Skyrim. Like it is available.
You can play it on the TI-83 calculator.
You may be able to play it on the PlayStation. Like it is an application that runs and it is available. And by then we've got, I mean, if we're looking at 5G internet for cell phone signals, a number of things, like you're going to be able to play this in a workable fashion in any Game Pass, really in general, in any way. So I think that I think it's guaranteed that they are working to expand Games Pass, which I think is what they want. Both Xbox and PlayStation want the same thing. They don't want you to buy their consoles. They don't really care. They're just doing it so that they can be like, oh, we can put that feather in our cap. They want you in their market. That's bottom line. That's why Steam does stuff. That's why they want you buying games from their store, operating in their online market so that they can, because they get all that revenue. Like they get a cut of anything that you buy from Steam. Steam gets a cut of. Same thing from Xbox. Same thing for PlayStation. Same thing for Nintendo. They want people playing there. As far as I see a world where Fallout 5 is released on all systems, PlayStation because it is ubiquitous and they want that everywhere. But let's say my dream Fallout Tactics Brotherhood of Steel game, which is a smaller experience, they can say, all right, you know what? That one's Xbox exclusive because that is a smaller vision. It's something that we really funded and went in there, because that's the benefit of exclusivity. That's why people do exclusives from a studio standpoint and from a third party that comes in there that says, okay, we want a 1 year exclusive, is they get paid. Like they get a lot of money. And if Microsoft is putting out $7.5 billion, they're going to get some return on investment. There's going to be Fallout and Elder Scrolls games that you're not going to be able to play unless you're in the Microsoft. I don't think that those games are going to be Elder Scrolls, I about said 5 because Fallout 5, Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout 5. I don't know about Starfield. That's very interesting because there was that whole there was a journalist that recently put out that even PlayStation was looking at making that a timed exclusive on the PlayStation 5 console a few months before this announcement. That they were still in talks about all of that. So
yeah,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure 100% on Starfield, but I mean that also, to me, that makes sense for something. If they want to do exclusive on Xbox, there's no Starfield community. There's a Bethesda community, but there's no like ubiquitous, like people don't know Starfield. People know Elder Scrolls. People know Fallout. Ideally, and what I think Bethesda, like if we look at the old Bethesda, the Bethesda of 3 days ago, I think that they want everything on every system. I think they want all of their games on the Switch. They are probably one of the most supportive third-party developers for putting their games onto the Switch. Like they put Doom on there and it runs really great. I think they're still trying to get Doom Eternal on there as well. Skyrim, I wouldn't be surprised. That's why people are saying, oh, they're going to remake a Fallout and put it on the Switch, because that's what they want. They want Fallout on the Switch. They want these things in as many markets as possible, because to them, Fallout is more than just an RPG game. It is a brand. It is Vault Boy. It is the TV show that we're the official podcast of.
Tune the Small Boy.
So for me, it's like I probably am not going to get. I'm not going to get an Xbox in the next year. But if you want to play the crazy thing about Xbox's marketing is if you want to play Games Pass, you just need an Xbox One. Give it 2 years, those things are going to be $100. And you can go and play the same thing. I can sit here. I have a phone attached to a controller. You can play Games Pass on that. Like, you can get an iPad and play Games Pass on that. Like, there's so many ways that they're making to play Xbox games that if you really wanted to go and play it, the price of entry is just your subscription and having a device that can run that.
Yeah, it's super low risk, and like you said, like it's an easy entry into their market,
Right.
just by playing on your phone.
Right. Now, how does that work with mods? How does that work with a number of different systems?
They'll figure it out.
Entirely unsure, but I hope that they bring, and I would be really bummed if I can't get Elder Scrolls 6 on the PlayStation or Fallout 5 on the PlayStation. And I think that they lose out a lot, because even like Ken said, like the Fallout 76, the majority of the popular role players are all PlayStation 4 based.
That's right. Yeah.
The Fallout 5.0, Dr. CJ Martin, the
Vultures
are all on there. You've got a large number of the Enclave that are on there. You've got there's one like a vampire group. I forgot the official name of that, but
come to PC.
Requiem.
Come to PC.
We'll solve all your problems.
To PC.
That's what I did.
Even Pete Hines though likes playing on console. He doesn't like playing on a PC at home.
Yeah, they say they
'cause,
don't
well,
want. They're done looking at that computer.
That's
screen
exactly
for
it.
8 hours a day. You know, let me be on TV.
That's my personal view on it. Is like I have played every single Elder Scrolls on PC. Like that when they came out back in, I guess this has been 10 years ago, I had a PC or a laptop that could run those games. But I was also in school. I wasn't in front of that computer constantly. But now at an office job, it's like I just want to go to my couch where I can lay there like I'm Jabba the Hutt and hold a controller in my hand and play a game.
Solo.
Yes, that's exactly how I sound outside of this podcast. Is exactly like Jabba the Hutt. But it's kind of it's a very intentional. The weird thing, the thing that I don't like, and there's one thing that I don't like about this, is the wording and the marketing is all very intentionally vague to sell the new Xboxes the day before. Are they allowed to make that move? 100%. Is it kind of weird to be like, what's going on with the exclusivity? Because that's the whole deal. Because even in the PlayStation 5 showcase, they're showing off Deathloop, which is Arcane's game. They don't have the details worked out. I'm sure that like exclusivity and how they want to release these games. First of all, they got to make the gosh darn game to get it to figure out what platforms it's going to be on.
The gosh darn game.
The gosh
darn game.
Mothman. Chaffin's the Hut.
Chaffin's the Hut.
Mothman Ranger in chat.
It's very weird, this whole lack of complete and total ideas. And this has been in the works for months. I am sure that this has been this was decided before yesterday or
a while. Yeah.
They just had one meeting and we were like, yep, we're good. Announce it.
Yeah. Todd and Pete Hines had a casual conversation over the water cooler. I sent Pete a private message yesterday, just congratulating them on everything. And it's been in the works for a while, but it's remarkable this is one of, if not the largest transaction of this kind in the gaming industry. We're talking about the largest acquisition here. It's huge. So to keep something like that secret until it was ready to announce is massive. So you're talking about a lot of stress and keeping it to a small group of people probably in order to have all of these pieces in place. And then to pull the trigger, he just seemed really relieved that it was kind of out there and now they can just, get on with getting it done. But the one thing that he was most interested to see invariably is all of the rumors and the nonsense that comes after it. The memes and
Mm-hmm.
What's been some of your favorite things that you've seen of like people freaking out about X or Y?
My favorite one is that with this buyout, Todd Howard was given a massive cash buyout to leave the company. I don't know where that came from, but sure, yeah. I mean,
enjoyed that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I won't change the subject, but I've enjoyed the memes of Obsidian and Bethesda being in the same room and somehow looking over their shoulders and seeing the other there.
Together.
It's funny they've collected they've collected all of the old Fallout people and I've said in some of my friends group, I'm like, maybe they're just gonna call the next game Fallout and just have everyone work on it, and it's just
it'll be like a reboot where it's exact like the thing. It's the exact same title, but newer.
Forget everything else happened. This is like we've assembled the Avengers of the Fallout world, and it really is the Avengers of. You have most of your Western RPG developers that are like big time players at Xbox Studios now, except for mainly what's the one, BioWare? Yeah,
the doctors.
They're the ones that
You know who I was thinking of yesterday? That because he's been in the industry for so long. Can you imagine how happy Ferret Bowden was to be working for the same parent company and be working with familiar faces again, like he did when he was back at Black Isle working on and Van Buren as well. I mean, that's got to be, it's like seeing old friends.
Yeah. I'm curious how much of Bethesda, and people are speculating, how much is Microsoft going to ruin this? And I think of the opposite. Whereas, frankly, from my perspective, in my opinion, Microsoft's first-party offerings have not been of the same caliber as Sony's before this Bethesda acquisition, and their studio levels of I guess repute within the industry have not been anywhere near Sony's. This, however, severely changes the scale of all of that, and you have these huge developers now working under Xbox, and it's like people are being like, how's Microsoft going to mess that up? But really, it's how is Bethesda going to change the culture at Microsoft? Or not Microsoft in general, but just Xbox Game Studios. I think it's going to be a lot.
I think Microsoft is going to enhance Zenimax and Bethesda's culture as opposed to dismantle it. I think too about, I was thinking, and I didn't have enough time to really do a lot of research on it, but the companies that Microsoft has acquired, like Obsidian is a great example, have they done better or worse since being acquired by Bethesda? I mean, they launched the Outer Worlds, which
by Microsoft,
Microsoft,
they've
right?
thrived. Yeah,
that's what I mean.
No, they've done well.
The Outer Worlds did well. I mean, people felt it was short and lacking whatever, but it had a lot of the core RPG elements, maybe a little bit, but the storytelling was really compelling. So I mean, I don't think they're doing worse. If anything, they're launching really good games.
And it seems like that they're like Outer Worlds was Private Division doing all the publishing, and they were cool with all of that, but then they were able to spin up Grounded, which was their newest game, and just like release on an Xbox Game Pass, and like kind of it seems like it has a similar trajectory of a lot of like these survival games that are still in beta that they're trying to work through and get these issues and expand on content. Kind of like Subnautica is probably a better example rather than saying a Fallout 76, because that's more live servicey. Like having that ability and that money to be like, okay, we're just gonna like do something crazy here and just make Honey, I Shrunk the Kids the game.
Like who would have thought that would be successful?
Right, exactly, and it was, and it got people. It gets more and more people every time to subscribe to Games Pass, which I think is, I don't think that there's a console war. I think that Sony is going to do what Sony does. Sony is nowhere near the level of money or influence that Microsoft is. Sony makes great games. Sony has made some of my favorite games. They're fantastic studios. I love their machines. Nintendo is trying to innovate the way that people play. Microsoft is just trying to get games in people's hands, and that's their business strategy. They're not trying to out console PlayStation. They're not trying to compete with Nintendo. Like, now it's almost like a perfect way of going into this, what I guess the next gen, where every single company is on their own pathway to success, and they're all different, and they're not really competing with each other. From my
you kind of have a reason to buy all three.
You do. You have a reason to buy all three, and like, you don't really have a reason. From my perspective, like, if you just want to play Xbox games and you have a good internet connection, you don't really need to buy an Xbox. Like, you don't really need to go out there and get one. Like, you can play every single Xbox exclusive on your PC, on your phone, on your tablet, like, already. That's why I put it on a toaster, like, put it on a fridge. Like, at that point, it becomes, instead of Xbox consoles, it's just like the Xbox service.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's where they're going.
Yeah, I'm here for that future, though.
They're competing on ideas, not platforms or technology.
Right. They're competing the same way that like Fortnite competes with Netflix. Like, Fortnite is competing for your time, and they're trying to pull people in to enjoy this entertainment. Netflix is doing the same thing, and Xbox is competing in that realm. I think harder than Sony is, because Sony, I think, is very traditional, which it works for what they do. So
I think that's a pretty good summary. I think that sums it up pretty good. You guys have any other last thoughts on any of this?
I did have a Debbie Downer moment, and I thought it was important to set expectations, because sometimes these things don't come to completion, and I can talk about why they fail. Acquisitions and mergers sometimes aren't completed successfully, and there's a number of reasons why. I dug into the Microsoft investor portfolio. Last year on their investor call, one of their long-term strategies was to position Xbox Game Pass as the Netflix of video games. That's really what their goal was. So acquiring Zenimax makes perfect sense to be a step towards that goal. Investors are presented with forward-looking statements for any positions that the company takes, acquisitions, anything that would affect the Start portfolio. In the announcement that Microsoft made, they lay out forward-looking statements that are based on specific expectations and assumptions, but there are roadblocks, potentials that are in the way that could derail that or change it where the outcome isn't as expected, as far as projections in terms of what this will add long-term to Microsoft or how it will impact the stock. Some of which include that the transaction may not be completed in a timely manner. One hurdle that I think is going to be a bigger hurdle, in February of this year, under the Trump administration, the Federal Trade Commission that oversees monopolies, antitrust, that oversees mergers and acquisitions, had started to look into some of the largest companies out there and the acquisitions and mergers that they've conducted recently, and even going back, ones that they've already completed, to gain more insight into companies like Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Microsoft. The FTC right now is looking to determine that if these smaller companies that were acquired or are going to be acquired or merged or bought out, if they were left to their own devices, if they would have flourished independently, or if the acquirer proceeded to use the IP and develop it. Another scenario would be if a buyout or acquisition or merger happens for the intent that that larger parent company would dismantle the smaller one, which isn't that common because it doesn't make sense to do that unless you're buying out a competitor and you want to just simply erase them from existence. So the FTC is really cracking down on ensuring that there's not a monopoly. The one question mark, I guess, that we have that they're going to be looking at is evaluating this move, which is, again, one of the largest moves in the gaming industry, if not forever. They're going to be looking at how this is going to impact competition in the industry. So where this will impact PS4, PS5, sorry, Sony, how this is going to affect competition. So I think there's going to be a little bit of some hurdles there to overcome as far as the FTC is concerned. That's one of the things. Some other risk factors that they laid out to shareholders include restrictions or limitations imposed by regulatory authorities. So the FTC has the ability to say, okay, we'll allow this to go forward under these specific conditions, in which case things become a little weird in order to get the acquisition to be completed. How this will impact the employees, retaining key personnel is another risk factor. So maybe key personnel, like if Todd Howard decided, yeah, I'm going to leave 3 or 4 months down the road, which isn't going to happen, but they have to lay out these kind of scenarios. All of these kind of small things, intangible assets, loss of community, platform changes, successfully integrating with Microsoft's business model. So Zenimax's corporate culture being able to meld seamlessly with Microsoft and being able to live in the same kind of business microcosm. All of these are kind of risk factors, but to balance things out and temper expectations a little bit, because again, we're in for, a year before this thing could be completed. So it's going to be a little bit of a road. This is just the start.
And I'm curious how that, like, what this will domino, and that's why you had a lot of people trending Konami on Twitter, which
I saw that yesterday.
Metal Gear and Castlevania and Silent Hills of PlayStation trying to buy them. And I think that's one of the factors you look at is you say, okay, like, is Sony going to come in and start like steadily buying up smaller American developers? Like what is the, from an FTC, I guess, perspective, or from, I guess, I forgot the name of the federal administration that does the, I guess it is the Federal Trade Commission.
Yeah, FTC.
What does that mean for non-American businesses? Because they have more control over this one because it's Bethesda, which, while international, is based and is quote unquote like American owned business, and Microsoft is the same way, where they're international, but they are a generator for the American economy, while Sony is based out of Japan, Nintendo is based out of Japan, and you've got other companies like Ubisoft that are in Europe. It'll be interesting to see how this will shake out. Kind of knowing that. I think that's a good piece of insight, Ken.
It's going to shake up the industry a lot, and this is just before the launch of 2 new consoles, so it is going to have an impact. It already has in a lot of ways. So long term, it's going to be interesting to see how this massive acquisition really elevates things. And like you said, it could also shake things up to the point that Sony goes on a buying spree and starts acquiring some companies too to stay competitive, which entirely is possible.
Their net worth, Sony's net worth, is comparison to Microsoft, which is not just Xbox, but is like all that they are at. Microsoft's at $1 trillion, and I think PlayStation or Sony is at like 100 billion or something like that. Like, it's 10 times smaller than Microsoft, so they're not going to be able to go out and buy Ubisoft, but or like, I'm trying to think of others,
or Rockstar.
Yeah, like Take-Two, who does the 2K and Rockstar and all this. Like, they're not going to be able to go out and buy that stuff. But like, WB Games is looking to be sold, and they're kind of a smaller publishing outfit. They have the Batman games. They have that new Harry Potter game. They've got a smaller selection, but are kind of in limbo right now. And I'm curious, like, what's the back and forth? I'm curious with the PlayStation 5 exclusives. Like, what's the back and forth with that? Like, I'm all down. Listen, I'm making the pitch right now to Sony. We can just back off on that exclusivity with that, and you just make the deal that we make sure we get the Fallout and Elder Scrolls like right into our veins. I'm good with it. Frankly,
Right
I don't like the exclusivity for consumers at all, but I understand from a money perspective.
I mean, like you said, Dave, it was worded ambiguously enough that, and even some Fallout 76 trolls in the groups were already saying, well, like, haha, I have Xbox and the games are going to be exclusive now, so eat a dick, PS5 people. There was a lot of that. So even if that isn't true, how much of that discussion made people rethink their purchase of a PS5 versus an Xbox? It's interesting.
Yeah, it was timed. It was timed.
It definitely made my wife, who I spent her money to go buy the PlayStation 5, go, you mean to tell me that you bought this PlayStation 5 and you don't get Fallout on it? I'm like, no, that's not
true.
No, but if we have to go buy an Xbox, that's okay too.
Priorities, wife. Priorities.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be interesting.
I think that we've circled around it, and I want to thank everybody. Everybody's had a very measured response today, and I appreciate.
You're welcome.
We've had very measured, information. So
that's true.
I think we've maybe covered this more completely than some of the stuff that's out there currently.
I think that we've done this better than most of the news outlets posting. Fallout is exclusive to the Xbox, or.
It's like we learned on our last interview. If you don't have the clickbaity, prediction crap going for your thing, then nobody's going to click on it, and then you're not going to make money on YouTube.
Yeah,
exactly.
But if chat listeners, if you want to come here and listen to the actual facts about things, then keep tuning into our show, because that's what we do.
Fair and balanced.
Fair and balanced.
We pride ourselves in being very serious and very balanced in all of our decisions, and there's absolutely.
Oh, we lost you, Dave.
Oh no.
There you are.
Am I here? I'm here.
He's back.
You're here.
Okay. What I was saying is we're very serious, and we absolutely have no shenanigans. And I take everything that comes out of my mouth with the utmost importance and seriousness. So everyone should know that when I say something, by George, I'm being 100% serious.
He never jokes. He doesn't even understand jokes, which is difficult because he thinks everyone else is always serious all the time. Also, it's kind of awkward.
I'm a Klingon. How Klingons work.
You're like Drax from Guardians.
A Draxo box.
A Draxo box. All right. Well, I think we're done. On that note, I think Dave has finished the show. So thank you guys for joining, as usual.
We've milked the cow. It's done.
We've milked the cow. Tune, thank you for being our guest on this. Do you have anything cool going on that you want to share before we head out?
Yeah.
Not much. Just streaming. Middays starting at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday.
Yeah, you guys should definitely go watch and check out Fashion War. I enjoyed. I was on as a judge for a while back, and I had so much fun. It was just fun to watch. It's like, it's hella fun. That's what the people in the West Coast say. It's hella fun, right?
You can also check out the series of videos I'm putting out where I use the latest season 2 Armor Aces and the Power Patrol.
Yes.
To spoof
oh my god.
to spoof GI Joe PSAs, which were kind of famous at the end of the GI Joe cartoons when I was kids. I'm like, let's take the Armor Ace and the Power Patrol and let them do PSAs in the wasteland.
Yeah,
it's
you guys.
It's pretty good stuff. You guys should go check it out.
Yeah, you have to see it. It's hilarious. It's the scripting, the wording of it, with the comedic time was fantastic.
More to come. More of those to come.
Good.
Cool. Ken, what do you have going on?
Not much. We are in the final stages of editing our series 2, episode 1, which should be coming out probably Sunday, Monday. That'll be it.
Nice. And Dave?
I'm pimping the same thing I did on Saturday. I've got an episode of Geography Arcade coming out talking about Marvel's Avengers with my good friend Tom, located to the bottom of me. If you look in the stream, he's at the bottom. He's wearing a very color coordinated outfit, I have to say.
I've got my new California Republic shirt on, just in case we get
got like a Brady Bunch thing going in here.
Yep. We do have a Brady Bunch thing. Eventually,
Tom should look at me. I'm going to look at Tom
when we've been on calls.
then Dave will look at.
That was the joke every person and every company in America made back in March when we first started doing the whole everybody's on voice calls thing.
That's probably true. But that episode comes out on Thursday. So there you have it.
There you have it. All right. I've got my normal stuff going on. We just had our Fallout Lorecast episode last night talking about we're going into cryptids for creepy time coming up because we're getting into the creepy month. Yeah. I should probably have Dave on to guest for one of these at some point. So we got that going on. I've been streaming in the evenings, usually after the shows. I've got a whole schedule of different shows throughout the week. So come hang out with me, twitch.tv/robotsradio. And I think that's pretty much it. You guys know how to get a hold of us. Check the show notes for any of the other stuff we got going on, and including some of the sponsors and things that we have. Get you guys some good deals on some stuff, including audiobooks.com. So go check that out. You can get like 3 audiobooks for free. It's a pretty freaking great deal. You don't even have to pay anything. So go do that. It'll be in the show notes. Free for 3. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. And thanks for being here, chat. We will see you guys next week. Same time, same place. Have a good one.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.